No, I said public breeder. I was skipping over my words. Sorry, I'm trying to find your presentation again. There we go. Okay, Chad Finn from USDA-ARS. Chad, I'll give you
So I've got an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. No problem. Glad to be here. I'm going to talk through several different crops, and so I'm going to keep moving. I will say to begin with, though, outside on the posters, we have all of our different crops. We have the ones that are, what I'm going to mostly try to talk about today, and what's mostly on the posters are things that are either available or they're trying to make available. So trying not to go too far back into the program of things that will be available in a couple of years, rather things that are available right now. As far as starting off with florcane or summer red raspberries, really question is we'll have a, that works too. We'll have a significant amount of Lewis out there next year. You know, the interesting thing on the trials is the same plants went to end fields that went to some of those sites that died out. I have no idea exactly why they were so unhappy. I don't think they're particularly susceptible to root rot, but for some reason it was not happy. So we'll see it this year. It's a parent of Wakefield, so you'd hope that it'd have some of the characteristics that have made Wakefield so good up here, but we'll see, and that's why the plants are out. As far as primocane types, goodness. I have vintage out there for people who are doing fresh market. Vintage has been a very good one. It's not, it's got great eating quality. It's bright, large fruited. Most things are good about it. I think we have some growers in Oregon around the Portland area that grow it under tunnels, and they harvested fruit for a long time and are planting more of it. I think the big concern is that getting the yield up as quickly as you can. It's not a big, doesn't produce a lot of canes, and so as a result, it's harder to get the rows filled out. So your production per acre, you may want to think about planting a little higher density than you might at others. But it's been a great flavor and a good one for sales. And it also, we had one grower who tried it in a Mexican planting system, and it seemed to ship okay. They want some other things to go right on to make it work in that wholesale production system, but it seemed to have the quality to do that. We are releasing this new one, 4090-1, probably going to call it kokanee if that works out, and a salmon theme. It's primocane fruit, great eating. This is one that did do extremely well in Mexico. I'm not sure it's the one for anybody up here. You already have enough problems with primocane fruiting types, let alone this is a little bit later primocane fruiting type. We do have two selections that we're putting into cleanup that are a couple weeks earlier than any of these, and those will be probably of more interest in the future here. But this is one that in a wholesale production system in Mexico, and I just found out in Spain, did really well for fresh. So there's this is the fruit, valuation in Mexico. As far as black raspberries, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because there's not a lot of interest in black raspberry up there, but for the few diehards, even in Oregon, we don't have a lot of growers, but we have a few really important growers. We have several that we now are having grower trials or available for grower trials. 3409 is kind of an interesting one because not only is it got good yield and good fruit quality, but also produces a pretty good primocane crop. That might be a bad thing if you don't like to have that fruit out there in the fall. But on the other hand, if you're a fresh market, it gives you that option to do fall production as well. But most people would probably grow it for the summer crop. We have just a series of these, and I'm not going to go into any detail, but these all appear to machine harvest. They appear to have much higher yield than Munger. The chemistry looks fine as far as bricks, which is so important to black raspberry growers. And so if you are interested in machine harvest black raspberries, I'd encourage you to try some of these. This is another one that's sort of similar to the previous two, but this one does noticeably have outstanding fruit quality, especially flavor. In blackberries, that's a beautiful blackberry that we're going to release there. I'll talk about that in a minute. I knew Pat would talk about some of the production in strawberries and raspberries, so I've skipped that, but I did want to talk about blackberries just briefly. Basically, Columbia Star, which is our newer one, and Black Diamond dominate plantings in the Northwest. Basically, Columbia Star and Black Diamond were 1-2 for the last couple of years in planting. And what's pretty interesting for me as a plant breeder, when I came here Marion was complete domination of the blackberry market. And now, especially because of sales in Oregon, where the industry is concentrated, you know, I think something like 2.9% of sales last year were Marion, whereas 10 years ago it was more like 80%. So that's quite a change. Columbia Star is the one that's out. We're going to get a real good read real fast. This is one that went from 12 plants to 400,000 plants planted each year in about 3 years. And there's a lot of it out there. There's some up here in Linden area. There's no question that it's got great quality. There's no question it's got great size, that a machine harvest. We know that while they're keeping quiet about it, it's a great fresh market berry apparently as well. But the question is it going to have the yield as reliable, at least for us in Oregon, as Black Diamond? That's one of the delights about Black Diamond is year in, year out, it produces a lot of fruit. Definitely Columbia Star fruit is better than Black Diamond for flavor, but if you're selling, that only works for certain buyers that you want that flavor. If you're looking at tonnage, then you know, Black Diamond is still maybe king. We'll see. Up here, seems to produce an awful lot of vegetation, and that's a little bit of a problem in Oregon. I mean, there's more coverage than Black Diamond, which is both good and bad. You can look at things, always look at the good and the bad. And Black Diamond is much more prone to sunburn, but is really easy to hand pick if you choose to go that way because the fruit's all very visible. Probably gets less botrytis, Black Diamond, because the fruit are so exposed to wind and sun. But we haven't seen a big problem with either one of those diseases on Columbia Star, but we have certainly seen better protection from sun damage. So it is definitely worth a try. You're not going to be disappointed with the yield, the fruit quality. You're not going to be disappointed with anything about it other than, is it going to reliably yield in your production system and in this area? And we're learning that as we go along here. This is some machine harvest fruit. I think the top left was from a plot at Enfields and the bottom right was from plots in Oregon. There is now out there a Willamette Thornless Marion. There's basically a Thornless Marion that Leonard Heidt found. It's a really cool thing in that it's a sport that's thornless, although there is some reversion, just like for those of you who ever worked with Thornless Evergreen, it will occasionally revert. But if you go out in that field, it looks exactly like Marion. Now, the problem with this, or not the problem, the reality with this is it's only going to select growers. And it's really unclear. It's not like when you're dealing with Wakefield where there's a clear structure. You go and you can do this and they can say yes, no, and then you're going to pay this much. Right now, it's sort of like some growers are allowed to grow it, some growers aren't, especially Willamette Valley fruit. People who provide for them are especially allowed to grow it. But the bad part about it is it's got all the problems Marion's got. It turns purple when it's frozen, purple under refrigeration. It's not tremendous yield, and it's very soft. But you can legitimately call it a Marion, that there's no thorns in the field, which is going to give it a marking advantage. And this is why I don't know of anybody who would actually plant Marion right now, because if your competition out there there is a Thornless Marion that's known to be out there, as well as Columbia Star and Black Diamond as Thornless blackberries. It's hard to figure out where traditional Marion fits unless you're catering to the cult markets that we like. I mean, we have people who only buy Marion. So the new one releasing is Columbia Giant. This one's just obscenely large and fun and well-formed and machine harvest just really nicely. It's got good yields. Because of its size, it's probably only useful for fresh market, because it is the type of thing that if you put out there, you're going to put it at a farmer's market. People are going to come over and wonder what this thing is and ooh and ah over it. And so it brings people in. It tastes good. It's a little on the tart side, but it still tastes good. But I do have had growers who say, machine harvest, great. Why wouldn't I grow it for the processing market? And I guess if I don't know, it looks awful big for IQF, but it's worth considering. 3448-2, we need a name for this one. We will have a few thousand plants of this available next year. This one caught everybody's attention because this is 2 weeks earlier than Marion and 10 days ahead of Black Diamond. For those of you growing a lot of blackberries, if you can get away with 2 less SWD sprays, that makes this one extremely valuable. You might not even have to spray this one. It's early enough. It's thornless, great flavor. The community that really growers that really went nuts over this year is we have a strong Russian community that grows a lot of blackberries, and this is the one they kept coming back to and wanted plants yesterday. So we're going to get that out there. Excellent yield. Overall, it's a really nice berry. And it's great to eat. It's a one that the sugar acid balance is a little more tipped towards sweet, so it's a very sweet berry. Some fruit of it versus Black Diamond, hand-picked on the top left, and some machine pick, first pick, white, so you're getting a few green fruit in there, but it looks like it'll machine pick too. We do have a couple what we call semi-erect blackberries. These are things like Chester or Triple Crown, and we've hybridized them with ours. These have been available for grower trials for a few years. I would like to name them. It's just a matter of finding the time to actually write them up. Because our fresh market blackberry is not a gazillion plant industry, there hasn't been a big drive for this, but I do need to get it done. This 2711-1 and 2816-4 are earlier than Chester, in most cases sort of earlier than Triple Crown. They're firm, taste great. They sort of had a little bit of, not nearly as noticeable seed as maybe Triple Crown or Chester has. For us, it's sort of a July, August thing, so it's probably going to be a late August, September thing up here. And 2816-4 is very similar parentage. It's got Navajo and Triple Crown and some of our material in the background. Same sort of ripening period, very productive. May not be as productive as Chester, which is like the world's most productive blackberry, but it is pretty remarkable anyway. One we're trying to work up is 4024-3. This is, I guess what I would bill this as, it appears to be like a machine harvestable tayberry. Who cares? Well, right now, if you grow tayberry, which is one of those hybrids between raspberry and blackberry, you have to hand pick it. They just don't come off the plant. So this is for somebody who might be growing a loganberry kind of thing. If you wanted one of those hybrid berries, it's very reddish, boisony color, tay color. This would work, and it should machine well, and it should go for a processed berry or a fresh market. In strawberries, we have the really sweet Sunrise that looks really good. It's a plant that's very durable, holds up to viruses very well, has high yield. Every single year, and I think I'll show you a slide of this, that Sweet Sunrise or the other new one we talked about, Charm, another new one we're releasing, Charm, were in trials. They were the #1 or #2 yielders. These things have, for years and years, in trial after trial, been the highest yielders in the plot. Sweet Sunrise is early. It's earlier than sort of a hood season plant. And so there's going to be people, there are already people who are planting it for both fresh and processed. It statistically always has similar or higher fruit size than Tillamook, which would be really impressive. But I tell you, for some reason, when you look at it in the field, it's not bigger than Tillamook. I can't explain the data. It's very valid data, but I don't know if we pick them much longer than we should. And so as a result, you know, the primaries on Sweet Sunrise are large, but not as large as Tillamook. And then we continue to pick down to where you guys wouldn't send people through the field. And so the averages of Tillamook get pulled down. I'm not sure, but it's a big berry, but it's not as big as Tillamook in my mind. High yielding, open plant, easy to pick, and looks to work. The Haagen-Dazs people were here through here, and for those who are growing for Haagen-Dazs, it's not like they've given a stamp of approval yet by any means, but it does appear to be interesting to them. Good plant, very vigorous, picks very nicely, caps very well. Its earliness does lead to some, you can get malformation in the primary berries because it's too cold or frosty. And so there are sometimes button primary fruit because of that timing. The other one we've released that's a monstrous yielder is Charm. This one was identified by one of our fieldmen who sent it down to be evaluated basically by the Haagen-Dazs people, and it popped to the top, and it's been our highest yielder every time we've grown it. It's a big, burly plant that produces a lot of fruit. We were afraid it would be hard to pick, but based on evaluation by crew bosses, it's no complaints there. It's more of a totem size berry, but very high yielding. So hopefully, even though you'd like a really big really big berry with really high yields, this one may not have as big a berry, but you're going to pick a lot more in a foot a row than you would totem. It's also held up really well. It's held up through floods. It's held up through lots of different situations. And even though I think of it as an ice cream berry for processing, if you go down to the Corvallis Farmers Market every year, there's a huge number of people who are bringing it to the farmers market as a fresh berry. And they can get quite large berries there. As I said, on the left up there, it's a vigorous plant. And you can see that you also wonder if you're going to try organic production, whether this is a way to go, because you don't need much nitrogen to make this thing go. and but appears to be able to pick it fairly well. No reason to really focus on this, especially on this smaller slide. Picture up here, the bottom line is Charm or Sweet Sunrise every single time we've grown it in all these different trials, starting as early as the first time we trialed in 2003, 2004, have been the highest yielders. We do have one that we're trying to get enough plants. We're going to release 2427-4. It's been out in a little bit of a trial. We're trying to get more trial. I need to come up with a name for it, but I'm not going to name it until I hear from the nurseries that they've got 100,000 plants, or at least some quantity of plants rather than 3,000 plants. And so I'm supposed to get word in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. This is one that's performed really well over in Michael's plots in BC. Big berry. It's a more of a Tillamook kind of berry, and that it's an open plant that's easy to pick. And Puyallup, it's done okay. I think in the end it comes through its decent yield, but it's a lot more prone to disease. I've seen a lot more foliar diseases on it in Puyallup. We do have a blueberry program. We released baby blues this year. This is either of tremendous interest to you or of no interest to you. This is a small fruited blueberry that machine harvests very well with high yields. Why would you want that? If you're competing with your sales of the low bush blueberry industry in Eastern Canada or Maine, this one's a stunning one. It gives you great quality, easy to pick, all those sorts of things. If you're trying to put all your berries into a fresh market deal, this is of no interest to you. But I'd encourage you to try it. We have a couple that we're trying to propagate. We've had a little bit of virus elimination issues, but we have 197-3, high yielding, great flavored, high bricks, so high sweetness early in the season. It does seem to get shock easily, but it doesn't seem to suffer like Blue Gold. And then 235-3, another really high quality, high flavor one with good yields. And we're trying to get this out as fast as we can into grower trials. We are cleaning up a few others for trial. I'm not going to dwell on these. The top group is 264-1 is a high bush blueberry with great quality that was identified by a nursery as being particularly good, in addition to our belief. And then probably of no interest up here unless you're traveling from somewhere else in the state. We have a couple rabbit eyes coming along that appear to be a lot more interesting than powder blue and aclocanine. So I'm glad to be here and alive and all that good stuff, and happy to take any questions because we probably have like 30 seconds before Julie goes on. Yes, Julie. I've heard that it does. The question was black diamond, when it comes out of the ground, because of the kind of thornlessness it has, it'll often look thorny. It's a lot like a raspberry that'll sometimes look spiny at the base, but as it grows out of it, you don't see any spines. And I have seen some of those kinds of things on, or I've heard of those sorts of things on Willamette, whatever they call it, Thornless Marion, but I haven't seen that. But I have seen nubs, and I have heard that it will revert, but I don't think it's reverting as bad as Thornless Evergreen would, which was, you started a Thornless Evergreen field, and 20 years later, it was mostly a thorny Thornless Evergreen field. I don't think it's that kind of thing. Any other questions? Terrific. Thank you very much.